Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sworn Statement Podcast, the podcast by the Collier County Sheriff's Office under the direction of Sheriff Kevin Rambosk. This is the podcast where we explore public safety issues in Southwest Florida and beyond. And one of the biggest safety concerns this time of year, it's hurricanes. This is mid-September, and that is the peak of hurricane season. More hurricanes have hit Florida in September than any other month, including the two major storms that have hit Collier County in recent years. When this episode releases, we'll be right in the middle of the anniversary of Hurricane Irma, which struck Collier County on September 10th, 2017, and Hurricane Ian, which hit Southwest Florida just 3 years ago on September 28th, 2022. Today, we're going to take a look back at both those storms and discuss what lessons we can learn from them going forward. We're going to tell you how you can be prepared for a storm, but also what to do and how to protect yourself after the storm, which I think is just as important but often gets overlooked. So, to discuss hurricane readiness and disaster preparation, I am joined by two members of CCSO's Emergency Management Bureau. First, we have Lieutenant Dale Deere. Lieutenant, how are you doing today?
Good morning. Hello. Thanks for having us.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. And also in the Emergency Management Bureau, we have Corporal John Amobley. Corporal Amobley, how are you?
Really good, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate both of you guys being here. So let's first just talk about what we've seen in the past. You know, the two biggest storms we've had here, at least in many people's lifetimes, are Hurricane Irma, as I mentioned, Hurricane Ian, which was not a direct hit, but we saw plenty of flooding from it. Lieutenant Deere, you've been here for both those storms. Just tell me, what are the biggest problems we see when there is a hurricane for the citizens out there?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that we see sort of coming closer to when the storm hits is people not heeding warnings that we give. And I know we'll talk about that a little bit later in the podcast, but uniquely with Irma, comparison to Ian, both were large storms, but they had independent issues that we dealt with. One was more, even though flooding occurred, one was more wind related, and the other one was, of course, flooding, severe flooding related. So we had different challenges on both, but our responses to it were pretty similar.
And what are some of the lessons that you take away that people ask you? You know, what should I know about when a storm is coming? How should I be prepared? I mean, based on what you saw during Irma and Ian, which you said were both kind of different beasts, what are some of the tips that come to mind?
I would say be very careful on the sources of information you have. Get your information from the Collier County EM. Get your information from the Sheriff's Office. When we post disaster information, get it from a reliable news source and so forth. But just don't rely on what your neighbor said or some other abstract information. We got plenty of resources in the county that provide you real up-to-date information that has been vetted by National Weather Service and such. So just refer to our websites and our social media platforms, and we'll get you the best information possible.
The other thing is they have to have a plan once the power goes out, if it does go out. And I'd recommend that everyone gets an NOAA radio. It's very easy. They're very easy to use. They're very inexpensive, and they can continue to get news information from those radios even when the power goes out.
Is that one of those like crank radios that they have? Is that an example of those?
That is an example. They have other models, not only crank but battery, but yes.
Yeah. What are some of the bigger tips? I mean, some of the more important ones that come to mind when we're talking hurricane preparation.
Have a plan. What are you going to do with your valuables in your home? What are you going to do with your extra car if you have to leave? What are you going to do with your home if you have to leave? What can you do to prepare your home to maybe withstand some of the characteristics of the storm, whether it be wind or flooding or no power? But my main thing is that they have a plan and then put that plan into action before the storm arrives. Once they start receiving information there is an impending storm, now it's time to implement that plan. And another good thing is to talk with your neighbors, talk with people in the community that have been through these events. You can learn a lot of good tips from them.
And then, Lieutenant Deere, what about when we talk about just having a plan, knowing what you're going to do when this happens? What about evacuations? What do people need to know about that? How should they plan for that? I mean, I assume they need to know their flood zone, and what should they be paying attention to and knowing when to evacuate if need be?
Yeah, absolutely. So the county is divided, like every other county, in zones, evacuation zones. So the coastal regions usually get evacuated sooner than later, and then it pushes out through the eastern part of our county. But the thing you need to remember is that we have, in season, we're hovering right around between 500,000 and 1 million people that come in season that are here, quote unquote, full time, right? that doesn't include all of the visitors to our county that through tourism. So we might hit almost 2 million people at a time, right? And if we have some storm that occurs during that clog of people trying to get on the interstate or US 41 to evacuate, the hours before or even half a day before, we're going to run into a lot of issues. So when you see evacuations coming through and you have the ability to gather up a few things and either take a few day vacation up to a different state and enjoy a little time, we ask you to do so twofold. Number one, we want you to be safe. Number two, we don't want to have an excess number of people that we as first responders have to go rescue when you realize it was not a good idea to stay.
We cannot send deputies out when it is not safe for our deputies to go out. So in the middle of the storm, we can't go and rescue. There are times when, I mean, it may be dangerous, you know, to go out for our guys. And I heard the 911 calls after Hurricane Ian. People, I mean, we've got thousands of them that were trapped in their home because they didn't plan properly or didn't evacuate. Just what have you guys seen when people don't evacuate when they should?
As you mentioned, when there's a certain wind threshold where we cease operations on the road for our deputies' safety. When we get past that windage, that wind mark, if you call 911, no one is coming to save you, okay? And I say that very directly and don't want to tiptoe around it. We are here to help to save everyone's life when we can, but at some point, we cannot. When the winds are 65 miles an hour, right, 45 and above, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, vehicles are going to start being pushed over, toppled over, right? So our response becomes increasingly dangerous, more so than normal when that happens. So we had many times in both storms where people stayed and then realized it wasn't a good idea to stay, and then waters start coming into their house. And it was horrific to hear the stories of people who stayed, who needed help, but we just could not respond to them. So the one thing I want everyone to get out of this is that you may have seen a storm or been present for a storm where we tried to evacuate everyone and then nothing happened. And I want you to realize that that isn't every storm. So when we say we give those evacuation notices the county EM does and whatnot, then give it a second look at, is it worth it to be stuck on the second floor of your home if you have one, having water come through your door, you can't start your car, you can't call anybody to come save you, and you are literally on your own in your house as it's flood waters are rising. Is that worth it?
Yeah.
And it's not.
And thank you for being so direct, because people need to hear that. I don't think they understand that. We have to protect our guys so we can save everyone. And you mentioned the flooding. I wanted to touch on that. I have in my notes here that we had a storm surge of 12 feet in Collier County. Never seen that before. So people that never imagined that they'd be trapped in their homes, like, I'll be fine. They're underwater and we can't come get them because that water is so deep. So please be vigilant. Please pay attention. Corporal Amabile, you started to touch on it, but what are some other things that people should be paying attention to, or what sources of information should they be looking for? What warnings should they be looking out for when it comes, in the days, hours before a storm?
Yes, Adam, I will tell you, not only the source of information, everything is truly about preparation. Are you going to stay or are you going to evacuate? If you get the evacuation order, do you truly have a plan? And this is what our residents need to do now. They need to have a plan, like the lieutenant mentioned. Are they going to go on a vacation in another state? Are they going to go see relatives? Do they have friends that are inland of Collier County? But if they don't have a plan, I'd hate to think that they're the ones that stay in their home and we can't get there to help them. Not only through our website, but emergency management, our residents can also go to the FEMA website, and it talks about preparing an emergency kit both for your home and also for your vehicle, so when you are out and about. But that's some of the advice I would recommend that they do, and they do it early, so when it's time, they're ready to go.
Yeah, this is all great information. However, as I said at the top, there's a lot of information out there for hurricane preparation. The news stations put out guides. We have it on our website. What I don't see a ton about is after the storm. And that's what lasts a long time. We saw it here in Irma. I think power was out for 11 days for some people, and streets are flooded for 2 weeks. So let's transition to that. What do people need to know, especially right after the storm? The storm gets through. What do people need to do either with their homes, with themselves, immediately following a storm?
Yeah. It is natural for everyone to want to go to their house immediately following the storm. And we don't discourage that. But what we do want to bring to light is that as soon as that storm hits, we're talking hours after it hits, everyone's back on the road. There are power lines down. There's tree limbs everywhere. There's garbage containers. There's vehicles. But one of the things I want to really press on everyone is that there are people in the country some wrongdoers that come to the county and they anticipate storm and storm damage. So when you're out driving to your house and kind of doing a little bit of a looky-loo thing where you're seeing what's down, what's not, is Publix open, whatever, you've got people around that are just salivating to try and do something, whether that's steal your vehicle when you're not looking, whether it's enter your home and loot. We have those people that do that, and they have been here, and we have made many arrests on it post-storm. So coming back into town after the storm is over, coming to your house and checking on it, making sure your family and friends are safe. We all encourage that. We want that to happen, but you got to have your head on a swivel a little bit. You got to be careful of surroundings and understand what's coming, at least in the first few days after the storm.
Perfect timing, because we just hosted our second Emergency Readiness Summit, where we gave all this information out for free, I might add, to a lot of citizens here in Collier County.
This summit was outstanding. We had a great turnout by a lot of the residents. While they were at the summit, not only did we have guest speakers, but we had 6 specific breakout sessions that helped prepare our residents, not only pre-storm or pre-disaster, but also actions that they could take, information they could gather post-disaster. I think it was a huge success, and we had a great turnout.
That's excellent. I mean, one of our biggest roles here at CCSO, and one of the things we do really well, is that public education. And I know that there was a limited amount of seating at that summit. You know, there's minimum space. So we're doing this today to kind of get that info out to everybody that maybe couldn't make it.
Some of the other things post-storm you have to be aware of is contractor and repairman theft. My advice to all of our residents are that when you listen or when you are looking for a contractor or repairman, the best bet is to use a reliable one that either you've used in the past or that a family member or close friend could recommend to you. Or if you do have a good contractor that does something different than what you need, maybe contact them and they could provide you with a good resource. But contractor repairman theft is a huge problem. Another thing is residents be very cautious about paying for anything up front, even deposits. There have been a lot of incidents where, unfortunately, our residents have been done wrong by poor contractors. Some of the other things that you have to be aware of are distraction crimes that could take place in the county. One person is saying one thing, trying to distract you, while another person is doing something else.
You'll see some folks that, when we finally encounter them, aren't county residents.
Yes.
That come through, as John was talking about, distraction crimes, and they may be on the side of the road holding a sign or with their babies and just needing help. And it tears your heart apart, like you want to help everybody. They, in most cases, are intentionally there. They live somewhere else. They drive over here to try to victimize our community by putting those signs and really tugging on heartstrings. Well, what they do, like John was discussing about distracting, could be theft from your car, where you're attentive to what their needs are, and then someone wraps around, hops in their car on the driver door, whatever, steals their purse, and they're gone. It could be any of those things. Could be stealing the car itself. So just one of the things, I know John will continue on, is be very aware of people being so needy in a public space. Right? There are plenty of charities and things throughout the county that we are partnered with that can provide very good amount of help to people and openly do that. So if they needed help, they couldn't find it. They don't need to be sitting on the corner of an intersection or in a gas station with a sign asking you for help.
Very well said.
Yeah, and also our residents themselves cannot be distracted. There is a lot going on after the storm. Some of our residents may have had some unfortunate things happen either to their homes or their belongings because of the storm, so they can't be distracted by that. When they're out and about, when they're doing things, they need to pay attention. Continue to secure their vehicles, continue to secure their homes, set their alarms if they're able to do so. Security should not change post-storm just because you're distracted by the events of the storm. So the bottom line is be safe.
It's stressful to go through the storm. It's stressful when you have damage to your home. And then it's stressful not only that, but you have to stay aware, as we just spoke about. What are some resources, or what can some people do, to kind of help stay calm and avoid that stress?
Yeah, so on top of those things you just mentioned, which are huge stressors, are when you get back to your house and it's damaged, you got the flooding going on, and you don't really know what to do, and then you get a contractor, right? And then you try to apply for a permit, and everybody else in the county is doing the same thing for a demo and rehab permit for the hurricane, all of that stress comes through, and it can topple you over a bit. So we have a lot of resources within the sheriff's office itself that can offer some guidance to try to reduce the amount of stressors you're under. Right? We may not be able to go over and completely wrap ourselves around you so that you're impermeable to danger, but if you take some of the resources that we have, such as our checklists and guidance on contractors to try to avoid being a victim of that theft or that issue. And then with the the emergency services, John, with the Readiness Summit, we had a bunch of community partners there that provide post-disaster relief efforts, whether it's assistance for a meal, just a hot meal. That could be the one thing that just makes your day, that you have a hot meal. The other thing is through the county, through our growth management division, on the proper ways to get your permits going and get ready after the storm, get back to normal after the storm. Because if you start going the wrong process to try to repair yourself, you're going to be down a whole other avenue of money, lost time, and everything else. So there's a lot of resources there, and I think John can touch on a lot of that from our preparedness summit, where a lot of people learned just a good way to be after the storm.
Yeah, when it comes to mental health, it is a tough subject. Of course, if any of our residents are experiencing any of the challenges of mental health, of course, they have the hospital as a resource, and then the hospital will be able to give them additional advice based on whatever the challenge may be. Also in the county is the David Lawrence Center. There's many different centers within the county, but those are a couple that jump out. Occasionally, you can also check with Salvation Army. They do have mental health counselors there that will be able to initially speak with a resident and then provide them additional guidance on where they'd be able to go from there.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we are very fortunate in this county that we have a lot of resources and we've gone through a lot of storms. So these other organizations that the CCSO partners with, they know what they're doing. They know how to get the help out there. They know the help that people need. So just stay aware, everyone. If you are struggling or need anything, just look to all the local resources. So as we wrap up, I mean, anything else that we haven't touched on that you want to add that people need to be aware of as hopefully hurricane season wraps up. Hopefully we've only got a few more weeks of the peak season.
Exactly.
Hopefully we don't see a storm, but we could see it next year or in years future. Anything else you want to add?
The only thing is just be wary, right? Put your guard up. When this happens, whether it be the phone calls that someone's a contractor and wants to help you and they just need a little bit of down payment and they'll put you on the schedule, that could be a red flag. May not always be, but just a guy you've never heard of or an out-of-state phone number that's calling you. That's just one of those things you got to be very wary of. When we give you warnings to leave, especially in a flood zone area, we really want you to leave. We want you to think about leaving. If you're going to hunker down, just make sure you are prepared to hunker down, because it's going to be some time before we might be able to get to you, depending on how severe it is.
Yeah, pay attention to the warnings. We're saying these things for a reason, right? So Corporal Mobley, anything else you want to throw in there?
No, I pretty much beat that dead horse.
Yeah.
It's all about preparation,
Yes.
but it's about preparing before the hurricane season. And every year, improve on your plan. So that's about it, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Gather those equipment and food and water and everything you need in the days, weeks, months leading up to. I've been just grabbing a couple cans when I go grocery shopping each week.
Order your water delivery early.
Exactly.
A couple weeks ahead of time. Get it ready. Get your 10 cases and hold it in your garage.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, well, that's great. Again, Lieutenant Deere, Corporal Mobley, I thank you guys very, very much for joining us. Everyone out there, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. And for those of you watching on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned for more episodes.